Good evening, everyone. Welcome. And tonight we have a meeting of the School Building Committee pertaining to Lowell High School. We have an agenda that the School Building Committee members have received, and essentially the purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide the School Building Committee an update as to what has transpired since our last School Building Committee meeting that occurred on April 30th, and to let the School Building Committee know and the public what has occurred and what are next steps in the process. And so to present the items tonight, we have our consultants here, Perkins Eastman, as well as Skanska, and so I'm going to turn over the presentation at this point to Perkins Eastman and Bob Bell. And if you want to introduce yourselves again, that's perfectly fine.
Thank you, Madam Manager. My name is Bob Bell. I'm a project designer and planner from Perkins Eastman. And with me tonight is Ashley Iannuccelli. She is our landscape architect and designer. And of course, Joe Drown, also from Perkins Eastman, is the project manager. And as you've mentioned, this is really just an update. We did before, at the very beginning of the summer, we wanted to make sure we squeezed in a few meetings before we lost some of the faculty and staff for the bulk of the summer. So we were able to get some educational input on how things have shaped up, and we're going to share that with you. But we also have, since we've last met with this committee, a number of things have happened. Many are aware, but we wanted to point out some highlights. So some of the updates since our last meeting include on May 9th, we had an MSBA Facilities Assessment Subcommittee meeting. And basically what that means is that's the MSBA's board members that get a chance to speak directly with the district and with the design team on the project, and specifically focused on the educational plan that the district has provided and how well the design is achieving the goals and objectives. And I would say that accompanying that is the MSBA's formal review of our submissions. We have submitted what was the PDP and the PSR. Those are both feasibility study submissions. And in their review, I think we've gotten a lot of favorable feedback and determinations. I'll point out some of the highlights. When we were at the MSBA meeting with board members, they commented on the design. They had a few questions and considerations that we would take forward. One of them was understanding with a building this large, where the elevators would be located, and making sure that the travel time for those with disabilities was taken into account. And I think part of the concern from the board member may have been that when you look at the distance from the freshman academy to the far side of the building, it was a bit long. But since then, we've been able to provide feedback and explain how the freshman academy really is kind of its own school for the sake of students at the 9th grade level spending the majority of their time there. So they really aren't traveling large distances, at least not regularly. And they will, of course, take other courses within the school and use other programs. The MSBA did urge, they took a look and they noticed that we were providing the new bridges and that they were proposed at 2 stories. And we know that there's a long way to go with what we can and can't do, working with historic and air rights, but they were glad to see that we were trying to increase the flow and access across the school, across the canal. They had some other comments to, also making sure that the school is set up well for community and after-hours use, and that it had, lock-off strategies. And that's part of what we'll be doing in this next phase of design. We'll be talking about safety and security and how the school can be opened up for events and still maybe have large portions of the school locked off or not accessible to any visitors. A few other comments they had asked about the stage and the shop that we're providing, and knowing that things developed in a scene shop need to get up to stage. They wanted to make sure that we had a route for that, and we in fact made small refinements to the plan, so we're able to locate the shop with elevator access that pretty much goes right up to backstage level. A few other things, they wanted to make sure that our landscape strategies, and they noticed in our plan we provide a good buffer to what is the main entry to the school, and the idea there is that we have a tremendous number of students that will be queuing up to go to sports programs or arriving or departing. So they were lauded the fact that we were thinking about the safety of all those students out towards the street edge. And they were also seeing the school the same way we do, that it's very unique, that the canals and the history of the city and the location provide great opportunity, and they were urging us to continue to explore opportunities to engage all of that. So those were comments from the Facilities Assessment Subcommittee. Additional reviews that they've provided were also about our program, the spaces that we have, and I'm happy to report that they've largely accepted everything that's been proposed. They continue to review some areas, but the only spaces that they are considering ineligible, and it's not uncommon to have some ineligible spaces, were the Katie's Closet program, the health center, the bank itself, and the school store. And although we know that these are also tied to education and to the health and well-being of students, the MSBA really just tries to draw a line in consistency among districts statewide. So it's really a relatively small amount of program that's ineligible, and again, it's not uncommon for many districts. I'll go on to report that we have also had educational leadership team meeting that I had mentioned. We had it June 13th, just before many people departed, and that gave us a chance to take a deep breath and look at how the plan was shaping up and speak very specifically about things like special education programs. And in our early design plans, we just spread special education spaces around the building as we're required to do. But this was a chance to talk about the program specifically and determine where's the best location for each one. So we had that kind of detailed level discussion on how we could improve the plan and improve some of the adjacencies. And tonight, when I get to the floor plans, I will be able to share that with you. I think Joe will provide us some other updates, I guess beginning with the MSBA's approval to proceed to schematic design.
Yeah. So on the 27th of June, we had our schematic design meeting with MSBA. And there are a number of people from this group that participated in that. And it was a very long meeting. There were a number of schools that were being accepted into SD, as well as other towns being accepted into what they refer to as their pipeline program. So it was, I think, an opportunity for MSBA to see everyone from the community, and the community was able to speak to MSBA regarding the process and working well with each other, and how MSBA had provided leadership in this period. So the project was accepted, and we are now in schematic design. So we have moved out of the previous phase, which was preferred schematic report, and we'll be refining the design as we go through this period, which is primarily July through next February. So I'll get into the schedule in a little further detail later. But what we're planning on doing in July and August is getting into the existing building and doing scans of the building, and that's actually already started. So we're scanning the building. We didn't have very good documentation of some of the older portions of the building, primarily the 22 and the 1800 portion of the building. So we have a consultant coming in and scanning the building, and we've started to get information back from them. We are also looking at hydrant flow tests during this time. We want to make sure that what the water pressure is, and that will help our plumbing and fire protection engineers design and make the calculations that they need for the systems.
Okay, now we'd like to move in and give you, share with you some of the site plan and floor plan updates. And the purpose of tonight's meeting is not to vote on anything. We're really just providing updates. It's been a while since we've last met. Nothing has changed in a very substantive way, but we have been able to respond to more the last round of comments that we've heard from the committee and from educational leaders in the community. So we'll share those with you. Ashley will take us through the site plan.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to get up too so I can point out some of these features on the site plan. But as Bob mentioned, there hasn't been any major changes, but we did receive some comments that we wanted to speak to on this latest iteration of the design. In past designs, there was a couple options that didn't have really large plazas at the entry points. So here, we've really adjusted that, and we have a very ample-sized entrance plaza, which we think is great. There's overheads protecting some of it, and those areas can be programmed with plaza space, benches, site amenities, and even we can look at stormwater management too, in the form of rain gardens and bioretention areas as well. We did receive one comment that said our handicap spaces were not close to the entrance or as close as they could be. So we know we have some existing handicap spaces here that are part within the roadway, part within the school property line. And previously we had been showing a parking lot behind here. So what we did was look at our streetscape, and at this point we're suggesting where we had previously proposed maybe that there was bus lineup spaces, maybe we look at adding the handicap spaces there. And in doing so, we can keep those a lot closer to the entrance as well. But that's something we'd really like to discuss moving forward. And then when we did that, we were actually able to gain up to 10 spaces up there. We were able to reduce this parking area. You still have space for trucks to back up in the service drive, but that gives us the opportunity to create a much larger plaza area for outdoor dining, which is very well situated next to the cafeteria. And it also really takes advantage of the canal space, which is a really special feature and something we want to capitalize on. So we feel like that's an opportunity as well. And then moving forward, we also might want to consider Dutton Street as a potential opportunity. I know now it's closed off, but it really would help our service vehicles if we could potentially come in and turn around. You know, it's just a thought and something we'd like to throw out there for future consideration, but that would make the ease of trash trucks and delivery vehicles much better. We still have our central green space and then plaza space around. So moving forward, what we really get excited about now that we're in schematic is all these opportunities we have for this site. So today we'd just like to highlight a couple of those, and these pictures are really just to get the creative juices flowing and say what could we do and what do we want to do. So one opportunity we have is this great green roof potential. It's located up above, it's got great southern orientation, and it's a perfect opportunity for agriculture. So you could do outdoor rooftop gardening, as well as outdoor classrooms up there as well. It's also elevating like that, keeps away rodents or any other sort of vermin, so there's some great benefits to having it elevated and not on the ground level. And it's also a great space that you can green up and have accessible to all the students. Another opportunity we have is these light wells that are in the middle of the school. So we don't really know what those are yet, but those have a great amount of potential. We don't know if those are going to be accessible to the students or not, but they could be contemplative gardens, they could house artwork that could be ever-changing. They could be winter gardens like you show here, and spaces for people to just view. But we think these are great opportunities to look at from the different floors and from below. And then the campus green. I really think this is the heart of this school. So this green has huge amounts of opportunities, and we'd love to discuss with the faculty and this committee what those are actually going to be used for. I think a lot of these pictures we like, they speak to almost a collegiate campus-like feel. But this green provides opportunity for passive recreation. You could also have yoga, you could have gym classes, you could have marching bands. And so that's, I think, when we want to start to talk about materials. You know, does that want to be an artificial turf? Is that something that's going to be used 24/7? does there want to be some plaza space around that? So moving forward, I think we'll be looking for input on exactly what that wants to be. And then another huge piece is this great plaza space that's overlooking the canal. So it's got great adjacency to the cafeteria. So again, we'll be looking at opportunities. Is this all outdoor dining? Do we integrate some gardening and bioretention areas here? Do we potentially put screens in so there can be movie nights on the canal or classes that are held out there? And again, just moving forward, looking for inspiration and looking to work with the school to figure out what they need and how we can provide it in these spots. And then I'll turn it over to Bob to talk through some of the changes in the floor plans. But is there any questions on those or any other opportunities that you see that we haven't picked up on? We feel this is really just the beginning of the conversation, and moving forward, as we go, we're really going to start to dig in and actually design and program all of these elements.
One thing, if going back a few minutes ago, we were talking about access in between the buildings. Have you given any thought to a footbridge that would be open and at the ground level that would cross the canal that way? And that would provide another stream of access, but it would not be enclosed, but it still would be usable, I think, for the greater part of the year.
No, that's a great idea and something we can definitely consider. It's not something we had thought of prior to.
Okay, thank you.
It would be nice also to consider bicycle mobility and how to integrate the bicycle along with the pedestrian in these kinds of walkway situations, and parking for bikes, and encouraging that type of transportation perhaps.
That's so true, and I know LEED has some different regulations now, so we're also going to start to look at bike storage, whether that be interior or covered, and more permanent storage, as well as more temporary storage that's outside just bike racks. But that's great. We'll definitely look into that. I'll turn it over to Bob.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. So I have the floor plans with me, and I know it's a huge building, so it's hard to break it down so that we can see it. I'll do my best. As you look at the floor plans, anything that's colored red or pink is basically administration or teacher areas. Blue represents general classrooms, purple special education. Green is science or tech spaces or arts. And yellow is really some of those larger activity or community areas. So what we're looking at now is the basement of the 1922 building, and you can see it's filled with green, which is actually the arts programs. It's both visual and performing arts, as well as the TV studio. And one of the things we heard through the user group meetings is that they really wanted to be together. One of the challenges we have is that although this is a day-lit basement, there's also, trying to get light into all those spaces, abundant light. So we know in some of the art rooms here, we have skylight capability. We know that there are old and blocked up light wells that existed in this building that we're hoping to restore. So the goal here would be clustering the arts programs is a great thing, but daylight will be the thing that we'll be focusing on in interconnectivity between all those spaces. So the way it breaks down is at the lower level, we have the ROTC program, we have music, we have visual arts, and then the 1890s building starts some of the academic clusters. The academic clusters were one of the primary objectives we had in designing this plan. It came out of the visioning, it came out of the educational leadership, and what we have are STEM and humanities clusters. In this case, they consist of 6 classrooms, and in all cases, special education is mixed in. So it's a repeated pattern, and the goal here was to also have teacher planning rooms that are sized so that that cluster of teachers can plan and work together, and that's part of the overall objective. One of the biggest challenges we had in renovation versus new construction was to make sure we could do this and create good visibility between classrooms and have spill-out flexible learning space. And I'm happy to report that we've found throughout the plan where we can create relief areas, enlarged areas in the corridor where we can have just natural sort of pull-out spaces, something that you see in a modern school. It also serves the purpose of widening rather than constricting flow, and that can help with a number of things, including avoiding collisions and confrontations in schools. So if we move up one floor level, you can see that we have a repeated pattern, same humanities cluster. We have another one at the north end of the building, all with flexible learning. And then in the center, you'll see pretty routinely we have a STEM cluster. So this consists of 3 science labs and then math classrooms. So this repeated pattern was something we were able to achieve. On the other side of the canal, on the 1980s and the new construction side, our goal was to improve the heart of the school. So we have a new main lobby coming in, and that lobby really wants to connect to a number of things. So first and foremost, the cafeteria is right off of the main lobby and now better connected to the canal and to the plaza. The lobby and the cafeteria also connect to the lawn, so it really starts to feel like the place to be in the school, and we'll have a number of flexible multi-use purposes. The main lobby, of course, connects to the fitness center, and by nature of having the community enter the school for things like the culinary restaurant, we're able to locate that off of the lobby, the bank, the school store, so you really have kind of your public zone. Upon entry, the first thing you will approach is the security station, so it's a very secure access into the school. But then we're still trying to contain what the community coming in would really interact with. And of course, we have the main support services in the school. If we go up one floor level, one of the things that's changed, sure.
Just, how big is the cafeteria going to be? How many students could that hold? Are you planning?
It's sized for, I believe, 1/3 of the student population, according to the MSBA standards. We could have sized it smaller at 1/4, but it felt prudent to size it larger, and then it can be scheduled in waves that are
That's good. That
more
gives
frequent.
more alternatives. What are you planning to do with the auditorium? Is it going to remain as the same, like, we have the, the chairs that were basically original?
Yeah, we've done a number of auditorium renovations, so we are looking at the auditorium and we can see that right now it has a lot of navigation issues getting in, and once you're in, there are some kind of less than stable floor levels. So we've been studying this, and we think we can remedy all of that and basically restore it. What we're probably looking at is all new seating, a complete restoration of the walls and the provisions for new, theatrical and house lighting and stage sets. So it'll be a complete refresh of the auditorium.
You're not talking about refurbishing the present seating, but putting
Not
new
at the
seating?
moment. With any project, we're early in the phases, so it may come from the committee's direction to, tighten up and look at the cost comparison of refurbishing chairs versus replacing them. Those are things that'll all stay on the table.
Okay, it's good. I mean, I'm a traditionalist. I mean, I like the original chairs and concept, but the thing is, there's also comfort and size. Those are very small chairs, and
They are. They're like 19 and 20-inch widths, and we're seeing more like 22 inches wide typically.
okay, good. Thank you.
So I'm glad you brought up the cafeteria too, because one of the big things that we reviewed with the educational leadership was, and it came out of the visioning, was the idea of one large caf, or taking a caf and making sure it had, elbows and alcoves and places where, you could break up the large number of students, but still maintain good visibility. One of the things in the visioning that we followed through here with is to create on the floor above, a separate freshman cafeteria. So we have one kitchen that distributes to 2 serving areas. One of them is directly above, and so it's a way to get the freshmen into, or take some of the students and get them into a separate area. This also makes some sense because the freshman academy is really starting at the 2nd floor. So it does a number of things. Also, if we go back to what the heart of the school is, that means when you walk in the school and you see the caf, you'll also get a view up to more activity, more continued space. So it's the idea is to really connect a number of things on the 1st and 2nd floor as you enter the school.
Is the cafeteria open on the 2nd floor? Open to the main cafeteria?
That, again, can also be determined. We have the ability to have open, open balcony to below, or that could be, a glass wall. It doesn't have to be open. So on the second floor level, if I were to break that down, you can see the repeated clusters again that we've already talked about here. And now in the 1980s building, you can see we have a STEM cluster. One of the other things in our educational leadership group meeting that we were asked to look at was the house administrations. And on the one hand, they all want to be off of the main lobby because there's a lot of parents that come in. But at the same time, you really want them dispersed and out with the classrooms. So the compromise was made that one floor up from the lobby, you would have two of your say, house A and B, as well as your freshman administration. And then just across the bridge, you would have two other houses. So it's really short and direct for visitors, simple to navigate to, but it also puts significant administration in each building at that second floor level. Of course, the Freshman Academy itself has its own clusters of interdisciplinary learning, so 2 science, 2 math, 2 English, 2 social studies. And again, where you see all these clusters, the spaces in between are things like world language, ELL, special education. The goal was to distribute those. Actually, world language really is its own department on multiple floors. But we wanted to distribute ELL and special education and health pretty much in pairs of 2, so they're never really just one-off rooms. And we're able to do that virtually everywhere with just a few exceptions. So on the second floor level, we also have that then upper lobby, the admin houses that I spoke about. We were able to take the MSBA's program for teacher planning space and make sure we could get all those planning rooms with each cluster and save enough to maintain or hang on to the little theater as effectively a seminar space. Freshman CAF, as I've described, and then the gymnasium at the upper level here. One of the interesting things and a great victory with the MSBA was and I think we reported to the school building committee already, they approved the co-location of adaptive PE with gymnasium at their maximum size with ROTC. The end result yields all the field house dimensions so that we can get a lot more use out of that space. And just to continue up, this really is showing you not only the 3rd floor, but the 4th and the 5th, where the Freshman Academy is 5 stories. And again, it's the repeated patterns that you've already seen. In this case, we also have the media center. And one of the things that we're excited about is restoring what used to be, I guess, a grand ballroom with vaulted ceilings and make that the main library. We're reserving some of the library on this side of the building. This might be more of the media tech center. So we have, a really 2-part library, but it should be sensational. The restoration of the auditorium, the restoration of this space, I think will be wonderful. We're hoping to get more photographs. We've got some so that we can even look at the old coffers that were in the auditorium and see if we can kind of restore, bring that back, bring that look back to the school. So that's pretty much it for plan updates. Any questions? So the next thing on the agenda is update by the city, I guess, on eminent domain air rights. And
Thank you. And the Assistant Solicitor, Elliot Veloso, has an update for us on those matters that the Law Department has been working on.
Good evening. Just to update you from the last school building committee meeting, just to recap, under 760 CMR 27.03 subsection 1, the city is required to submit a relocation plan to the Bureau of Relocation 45 days prior to any acquisition of property, in this case eminent domain. The city has finalized its relocation plan, and it is anticipated it will be submitted to the Bureau of Relocation this Friday. Based on that, it is anticipated that eminent domain taking will be permitted 45 days from submission of the plan, which would occur in September. So right now, it is anticipated that eminent domain taking by the City Council, that vote would be presented in September. Additionally, After that vote is taken, once the city records a certified copy of that taking with the Registry of Deeds, it is on that date that the property will be in the possession of the city of Lowell under state law. And that recording can be done 30 days, up to 30 days after the vote is taken. But there's nothing that precludes us from doing it immediately thereafter the vote. So that's our current status right now in terms of eminent domain. In terms of air rights, the city continues to proceed in exploring those air rights. The city is in contact with the National Park Service, which has a portion of air rights over the trolley cars, as well as the state, which has the, specifically DCR, which has the air rights over the canals. Analysis of that remains ongoing.
Yes.
Any questions on that? Councilor Kennedy.
When you say the city has been in contact with the national park, what do you mean by that? Just what do you mean? Has there been, how far is that, those negotiations gone, and where do we stand with that now?
What I can say is that we have been in contact with Pete Arcilla and other elements of the National Park Service, and we've also explored sort of the contours of the air rights, specifically where the air rights are, and sort of the steps that would be taken in order to secure potential expansion of easements over them. At this point, those discussions remain ongoing.
So how long do you think that process is going to take? I mean, it sounds like, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, that so far it's been limited to a discussion with Peter Arcilla about going forward. And so the process itself, how long will that take?
I can't say as to how long that process would take. I can certainly speak to, well, what I can say is that any process to secure expansion of easements involving the National Park Service would have to be done directly with them. I can't speak for certain as to how long that process would take, but we are in communication with them as to what we have to pursue.
Okay, I guess, how about this? During your discussion with Peter Arcilla, was there any discussion about how long the process would take? Is it likely to take 6 months, or will it take a year? Does it require approval from Washington, D.C., or just what's involved in that process in securing those rights?
At this stage, what my understanding is that it would have to go through an approval process with representatives of the Department of the Interior at Washington, D.C. And the time frame for such discussions or approvals it depends on sort of the expansion that we're looking at in the process of the review. So it could be anywhere from potentially 6 months to a year. At this point, I can't speak as to a specific timeline as to that process.
Are we able to move forward? If we get to that point, would we be able to move forward with the project, with construction, before we secured those rights, or would we be waiting on that?
So perhaps, and I can answer part of this. So there are existing easements for where the tunnels are right now. So in right now at this stage, I don't think we can say for certain where they want to place the tunnels. Do they want them in the current state, in which case there are already existing easements? Do they want to change it, the configuration or the location? And that's really dependent in large part on what the proposed design is going to end up being. And that's why we're having the discussions now, just to have an open discussion. We've had some preliminary discussions with DCR about which would be a home rule petition if we wanted to expand. That's the Article 97 portion. And we've had some discussions with them about having just an overall option over the canal so that they could be in any location. So those are things that we're working with them because we don't have specific design that we're proposing.
Okay, so we'll just get updates on that as well.
Yes, yeah. So And so we began the discussions now, even though the design has not been finalized, so we can try and, if at all possible, just get a scope of permission, understanding that there'd be 2 tunnels and what their potential locations could be. But there, and maybe Bob can address that further, but we don't know that just yet because of where we're at in the process.
Yeah, I could maybe add that we think the relocation, the new location of one of the bridges is an improvement historically because it moves it away from the street face and restores a bit more of the view and vista of the existing school. We'll see if that plays out. But as far as rights go, the design, our backs are not against the wall with the bridges, and the plan functions and will work if the bridges need to remain as they're shown. And possibly repaired or fixed, but certainly what we're proposing are improvements, we think educationally as well as for historic and other reasons.
Okay. I understand that our backs are not up against the wall right now, but I also realize that that the Department of the Interior can work very slowly, and so while our backs are not up against the wall now, they could be 9 months from now or 10 months from now if nothing's done at that time. So I just think it's something that we should try to push and push forward on. If I could, on eminent domain, have the appraisals come back?
No, not yet.
Okay. So I was anticipating that we would be taking, the city council would be, the eminent domain vote would be before the city council in August, but now it will be September.
It's September.
Okay. Is that because the appraisals have taken longer than what we anticipated?
No, I think that's within the range of what we anticipated in terms of the timeline. We wanted to have that done based on conversations with the MSBA, certainly before we're back before them in next April. This gives us ample time to do that. But in the relocation plan, as Elliot said, which is another part of the necessary steps, is happening this week, and then we can't do anything for 45 days after that's been submitted to the state. So. But September is, August or September, I think, was discussed, but it still puts us comfortably where we need to be.
Okay. And my final item is the city council passed a motion several weeks ago to have a working committee, subcommittee that would work. And so are we good on that? Is that something that you can discuss right now?
We did just send out a letter appointing that subcommittee. We were working with Skanska and also took suggestions from the city council motion on that. And I don't know whether we have the list. We don't have the list here, but you will have it for the city council. But that has, we've worked with the consultant as to who should be on it, and there is a subgroup for a working committee.
Okay.
And then on the Article 97, I just wanted to add, again, based on preliminary discussions with DCR, if there's a change in where the tunnels will be located, we feel pretty confident that they will work with us on that, and we don't anticipate problems on that. It will require, as I said, home rule petition. We can't do that until after the new legislature's sworn in, because it does require a roll call vote.
Right. On Article 97, there was an Article 97 legislation passed last year.
Correct.
That would be null and void, I guess, this year. So in order that the new Article 97 legislation be successful, would it be prudent to also ask the delegation to provide legislation to negate what was done last year, or how should we handle that?
Yeah. So what was passed last year on Article 97 by the terms of the legislation, it said that if a school, the high school, was not built on that land within 5 years, it would revert back to the Board of Parks, and there would be no Article 97 lift of restrictions. That was by the terms of that particular piece of legislation. But in order to, what we've discussed with the law department is filing a new petition for relief for Article 97 restrictions on the canal. We also discussed to request that that be, terminated as part of the same home rule petition, so that
Okay.
so there's some clarity as to, we're not asking to build a high school in two places or so forth. So the law department was prepared to prepare the request for the Article 97 relief and include reference to the prior legislation that requested into the legislature, rule that essentially null and void.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess I will turn this, any other questions? I'm sorry, I didn't, no, okay. So the schematic design overview, is that,
Yes, so what I was going to do is just run you through the schedule briefly, and so you can see where we are currently in time and what we anticipate the process will be moving forward. So primarily, we're here in July, and the end date for our MSBA submission is out in February. And we're looking at a board meeting with MSBA in April. So that's the overall time frame we're working with right now. You can see across the top of your schedules, we have a number of meetings that are identified as either a school building committee or combined school building committee and city council, and that marches down every month. We have a number of items that we've identified there in terms of what we expect the agendas will be. They'll be somewhat flexible as the building develops. We may add something to it or take something away, but this is how we've looked at it so far as we're moving forward. The next grouping is what we're identifying as the ELT and working group. It's the group that we've been working with all along that we've been providing updates to. They provide us guidance on how to move forward. So when we come back to the school building committee, we have information from them. And you can see that we have a number of these meetings. We're looking at having one on the 14th of August. And we have a number of activities planned for those meetings. And they're going out right now until October. We also are showing focus groups. We started with those back in feasibility, and they've helped define the program, the goals of the project, and we'll continue with those. As we get into, now that we have one design, and we are getting into more detail of how to design that building, there'll be things that we'll need guidance on. And we want to report back to them to show how well the program is fitting into the building and in areas where we may have some challenges. So we have those scheduled out in September and October. We also are looking at having a student forum. We wanted to find an opportunity to engage the students, and we've identified that in October as well. And then we have a list of community meetings. We identified one in October, another one in December, and then one out in February. And those will be adjusted as we have guidance from you as to when it's appropriate to meet with the community. So that is, where we're heading with our user groups and our meetings and input back and forth with the city. The next group of activities is showing, some of the tasks that we're participating in now and into the future. And the first one below here, as we start off, is existing conditions, and I briefly mentioned that before. We have a consultant out, and they're doing laser scanning of the building. So they will produce a 3D model of the building that we'll use to start building our model. So that is underway. We've got our first drawing back from them, and so we're looking at that now. We'll give them guidance on how to proceed further. And we've identified 75 RCAN, when that, we are looking at that becoming available to us to do testing on that site. And that we've tentatively have identified for November 1. So for that month, we'll be looking at doing borings, getting into the existing building and looking at hazardous materials, and if they in fact exist. And then whether or not we need any additional traffic study. It was a line item that we wanted to make sure if we do need that, we have that identified, and if we are guided to do more study, we just wanted to make sure it didn't fall off the radar screen. So what we're doing during this period from July through November is refining the design. And we'll be working with you on a regular basis, getting feedback from you, and refining and coming back and presenting that. And then during the months of December and January, we've blocked out a decent amount of time to do cost estimating. So we want to make sure the cost estimates are very good. And oftentimes when you do a cost estimate, you sometimes are over budget. It's the nature of doing a design. So we want to make sure we have opportunities to bring the project back on budget, and that everyone has an opportunity to participate in those decisions on how to do that. Because you're going to be setting your project budget at schematic design. So we want to make sure we have ample time and enough participation from the people who need to participate in it to be able to get the budget where it needs to be. And I did mention that we will be submitting to MSBA. And then there's a grouping of regulatory approvals. During this period, we'll be meeting again with, we've met already with the city regulatory groups, and we'll continue to meet with them, seeking guidance as the design develops. Now that we have one design, we'll talk about fire protection, we'll talk about security, first responders, and such. So we'll be working with everyone during that period. And then, of course, there's a vote by the school building committee and city council that will be out in February to submit the schematic design to MSBA. So next steps, oh, sure.
If I could, just a question about the sustainability subcommittee.
Yep.
There's a committee that met twice so far. We were talking about having meetings, and I don't see anything on the schedule for that.
Let's see, we do have on 9/11, we have a sustainability meeting with the ELT where we're addressing priorities. On 10/4, we have a ELT meeting, working group meeting with sustainability, and with the focus will be energy. And on the October 16th, we have another ELT meeting where we're talking about sustainability as well as security.
I'm sorry, what was that last one?
The last one was 10/16. So sustainability is part of an ongoing dialogue. One of the, I did reach out to National Grid. They wanted to normally participate early on a project because they have grants that are available. So we did reach out to National Grid. I'm waiting for a response. I thought it would be difficult to set something up in August because of vacations, so I expect that we'll probably have that conversation with them in September. Any other questions with the schedule that we have? Okay, so I can get into a little bit more detail on next steps. So on the 14th, we have the ELT meeting, and we're doing plan updates, ongoing laser scans in existing building, ongoing development of schematic design and scope. So the design now is getting refined. I will say that we have started meetings with our consultants, so that's our structural engineer, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, and that was very successful with regard to the building systems and looking at pathways even this early on and looking at how best to establish those, particularly with a new building. So we're looking at the portion of the building which is new, which will house a new mechanical system, and then we'll work into the existing building. So that's ongoing. We have a 9/6, we have a SBC meeting scheduled, so we'll be focusing on the three-dimensional massing of the building, what the building is starting to look like in 3D, and exterior updates. On 9/11, we have an ELT meeting, as I mentioned, sustainability will be the focus. And we have a number of meetings that we're looking to determine what the appropriate dates would be, which would be Lowell Historic, Conservation Commission, and Planning and Development. And then, as I mentioned previously, we were at this time targeting 11/1 to access 75 Arcan Drive for future investigations.
Thank you. Any questions on next steps? Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you. Maybe it's premature to talk about this, but most people in the United States today are concerned about security in the buildings. Are you able to speak about some of the security features that will be in the school, or is it too early to do that?
We've actually had some meetings on security. It was back in when we were doing the preferred schematic report. So we've talked about it in a very preliminary fashion. We're starting to, and so a narrative was developed that supported those ideas. Now we'll start to get into actually identifying how we implement those. There are a number of strategies. I think Bob has mentioned this a number of times, you know, in terms of creating eyes on the street and how you distribute oversight throughout the building and transparency within the building. You know, so we're looking at, you know, everything from top to bottom in terms of security through the building. Bob also mentioned how we want to be able to lock off the building. So if there's an activity in the gymnasium, we may be able to lock off the rest of the building so that, you know, the activity in the gymnasium stays in the gymnasium, and likewise with the theater. So we'll be looking at ways of accomplishing that through hardware and alarm systems. So yeah, we are looking at that quite closely, and we'll be working with you as those develop.
Okay, thank you.
That was a
Mayor
good,
Samaras.
I'm sorry, that was a good question. The building that I think that would be the hardest is the 22 building because of the number of doorways. It's an old, I mean, it's probably the best, strongest building in the city of Lowell, but it's got a lot of access ways. Can you shut down some of those access, or because it's a doorway, it has to remain a doorway?
Yeah, it's what we'll be doing is a thorough building code analysis. And we need to make sure that we maintain the correct amount of egress depending upon the population. And if we're using a part of a building and it has a capacity, we need to make sure that we have a sufficient amount of doorways that allow that to continue to operate legally. So to answer your question, will all the doors have to remain? That's still yet to be seen.
Okay.
We will study that, and we'll bring back recommendations to you based on our code consultant's analysis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Anything else from Perkins Eastman or Skanska, Marianne? No? Okay. Thank you. So let me just by way of quick announcement, I want to welcome our acting superintendent, Janine Durkin, and new member of the school building committee. Just to follow up, the notice did go out about the new appointments. There's some people who have stepped off, and new people will be coming on to the school building committee, including the Superintendent Durkin, as well as the notice regarding the working group. So we'll provide the council with all of that, as well as the school committee, so they're aware of the changes in people on both committees. And if there's nothing else, then entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Second, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you all for being here.